Chapter 5.
Yeah, we did well last week. Now we're starting in chapter 5, verse 1. And
The final chapter.
the final chapter. A good chapter too. There's some good stuff to unpack in here. Not a whole lot. It's kind of winding down, but let me see verses. Let's chunk off 1 through 4. Does somebody want to volunteer to read the first 4?
Sure. Therefore I exhort the elders among you as a fellow elder, and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, and a partaker of also of the glory that is to be revealed. Shepherd the flock of God among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but voluntarily according to the will of God, and not for solid gain, but with eagerness, nor yet as lording over those who are allotted in your charge, but proven to be examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive an unfavorably crown of glory, unfading,
So I like in verse 1, Peter is saying, I exhort the elders among you as your fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ and partakers of the glory that is to be revealed. And you almost read right over that, but it's a very poignant reminder that what we're reading is he is an eyewitness testifier of what went on of Christ himself, which a lot of other religious texts don't have that advantage. They don't have that credibility. And I think that weaves together a nice sense of credibility with the Bible. We have eyewitness testimony for people that were there, not secondhand or third-hand knowledge. And I think verses like this sometimes get read over quite quickly, but it's important to take comfort in that. Because after all, our whole justice system is based on that. We do witness testimony all the time. People are, exonerated or whatever have you through first-hand eyewitness testimony. Anything else? Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's important to realize within this first 4 verses here, all of the words that define the leadership of the church are mentioned.
Yeah.
Eldership, shepherds, what was the other one?
Overseers.
Overseers, yeah. So you got all 3 verses that are all descriptive of what an elder is, or even, to go a little step further, a pastor is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have not connected those and have separated them as being different, offices in the church.
Entities.
And I've even seen and heard about those that were called overseers.
Yeah.
They would be on the podium or up here on the stage and up a little bit higher so they can oversee.
I've seen that.
You know,
I've
and
seen
I'm
that.
like,
Wow.
really? Talk about literal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously,
It sounds
Sort
like,
of takes the next verse out of play, doesn't it?
yeah,
Ability.
Yeah, and so I just thought that was kind of strange. But it's interesting that
not lording over it.
Peter's writing, he puts all 3 of those, and then the responsibilities that go with it. And of course, we have to go back to Timothy
Sure.
and Titus to see the qualifications for this office.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people discount and say Peter wouldn't qualify because he didn't have a wife. Well, he did have a wife, we know from the scriptures, because he was
Paul said it.
at his mother-in-law's house.
Right.
Well, Paul also said, doesn't Peter and them have wives?
Right.
Only I think he said only I,
Yeah.
and that means only I. When you say that word only, that means one.
Singular.
Singular, yeah.
But yeah, the other thing I seen is, it says, being, what they said, being, examples.
Yeah.
But, you know, and not lording over it, the example part, and it always, when you talk about leaders and to me, the good leaders of the old days, you have to go way back to like the Roman Empire, where Julius Caesar, he started out as a leader. He charged, he led the battle. He was in front. He wasn't behind saying, you guys do this and you guys do that. He was there in the mix. You know, same way with David, King David, when he was running from Saul and doing everything, he was the little band that he had. He was their leader, but he was there. And it was a while after he became king that they forced him not to be in battle anymore, because they were scared, you know. But he was always there, and that's what an elder to me is. Somebody that's like, he's breaking the water for you, right? And you, if you start following an elder, you can't really go wrong. You know, the example. If you got a good elder, I mean,
Right.
I mean, there are people who, you know, there are people who follow preachers and personalities, and that's where we go wrong when we start doing that. But if you're following an elder and the elder's following the Bible, it's just you're doing the right thing.
Somebody who's practiced in self-examination, comparing, okay, what am I doing compared to what's in here, and trying to harmonize that. I think last week we talked about Amos 3:3, can two walk together lest they be in agreement? Yourself with the word. That's definitely,
But I think we've also, somewhere along the line, we've forgotten what the word example means. When you set something up as an example, it means this is the template.
Yep.
That means everybody else is supposed to be equal. They're striving to be equal. This is what they want to look like.
yeah,
That means that this can't be up on a pedestal, because then you're no longer equal.
yeah.
You know, otherwise everybody else joins up on the pedestal, and that's not a lot of room for a lot of people to stand on.
Yeah.
So the point is, an example is there to be a template for others to join and become, which means that you should have a row of people who look very, very similar spiritually. Which means that this person doesn't mean they take another step up so that they can be, you know, above everyone else. It means that this person, with humility, this is the example. I'm going to strive to be like Christ, to follow the Bible, so that everybody else can join me in being like this.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, we stopped thinking of the person as an example of, oh, we're going to bow, we are not worthy, we are worms. That's not what an example is. An example is a template. Jesus was our example.
Exactly.
We are to strive to be like Jesus. And the same thing goes, the trickle down is the same way. We're all trying to be on par with one another. We're not meant to be here, 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 here. We're all trying to get here.
Yeah.
And so elevating someone as an example is, no one should be above Jesus.
It's kind of like a herd of zebras. They're camouflaged. So long as they're together, they are alike, and it's hard for the predators to pick them off. You got leaders in the herd, of course, but when they're all together and they all look alike, it's like it's the pattern. We were, you know, the pattern of the Bible, you know, to tie it together. You know, it's just when you do get somebody like setting up here, overseeing, then that person's just standing out, and he's an easy pick for the devil. As soon as you start standing out, you become an easy pick for the devil, because pride, I mean, everybody has that. Pride, ego, whatever you want to call it.
Template is a tool for duplication,
Exactly.
not for emulation. I mean, in a sense, emulation, but you're emulating that template so that you can duplicate that effect, right?
I think that also the wording here that they use when you talk about being a shepherd. You know, when you think of a shepherd, you know, you think of, as Jesus said, that he had 100 sheep and then one went astray, and he went, and once the ones were secure, he went to search for the one. And that shows that a true elder or shepherd or overseer, whatever you want to call them, they are to be looking over the flock, looking for those who are maybe weak or wandering, and try to bring them back into the fold.
Absolutely.
And the fact that if they're becoming attacked, as David did, he killed a lion, he killed a bear,
Yeah.
and without fear for his own self, that he wanted to make sure the flock was safe. And that's what a true elder is. You
Yeah.
know, so many times it has become a position of honor wherein they're not even that concerned
Yeah.
over the flock. I know this personally,
Absolutely.
asking for what should we do about these wandering Christians. And they said, well, you're welcome to go after them and stuff, but you know, we're here at the building, so if they need to come, they can come. I'm like, that doesn't even sound like it. Someone is a shepherd looking for the lost.
Yeah.
And
They know where we're at.
Yeah.
Type of attitude.
well, yeah.
You know.
Well, I had another one.
Well,
tell
but
me-
see, the problem with that is sometimes I feel it sometimes that like, I feel disconnected from the church. I know where it's coming from, but I do sometimes at low points, I feel nobody understands me.
Right.
And once you make that one day, you miss one Sunday, then 2 Sundays, and 3 Sundays, then it's easy. Then
Yeah.
it's done. And you said, well, they don't really care about me because look, they haven't even called me. It's been 5 weeks now.
Yeah.
You know, and nobody's even called me. So that proves my point. And then, like you said, if you don't have elders, and that's what we really truly need here. I wish we could get a good group of men, you know, that qualified, but
Slim pickings here.
yeah, you know, I mean, we got a lot of men, but you know, it's like
No,
the
not for the
qualifications.
men's sake, it's just,
It's,
the
the
qualifications
qualifications
not an easy
are
task.
limited. I mean, you know, I can't qualify, and
Right.
you know, I mean, it's just, it's a sad thing, but we can.
We got people, like
Continue.
our congregation, we got people that can kind of fill that role, but not in so much the biblically.
Well, I think we all should. I mean, that goes back to the wives submitting to your husbands. I mean, in chapter 3, I mean, I think we all can learn.
Yes.
You know, because you know, submitting to God and you know, because we are the bride of Christ, right? The church is the
Yes.
bride of Christ, and we you know, we draw a lot of parallels through that, and humility, as what you know, but the we still are we still need that. God didn't set up the church for elders and stuff lightly. There was a reason for it, and and that is a thing we must strive to get.
As we were reading through this, one of the things that came to mind was military leadership.
Yes.
And I think we've all known leaders that lorded their position over, were greedy for either money or power or for comfort, creature comforts, and used their rank for that. And I think that's the same thing here. And then I had some good experiences where I had leaders that truly cared for the flock, truly. I will tell you, the ones that you will follow into battle were always the second part. So this is actually a practical thing too. If you serve like that, if you serve out of humility, if you serve for the good of the flock knows that and they will follow you.
And surround you when you need help.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, you know, in a leader that I had, two different leaders. One, he would come in at 4:30 when we're supposed to be done for the day at 5 o'clock and give us 3 hours of work to do. Stuff that he knew needed to be done in the morning, but wouldn't tell us until then, so he could show that he could exert his authority over us.
Yeah.
We had another one who was very, he cared very much about his soldiers, and one time he had asked me to type up a report, something that he needed, and I was doing other things. I'm like, yes, sir, I'll be able to get to that, and I forgot about it with the other things. And he came back in, and he said, hey, Fogarty, you got those, that report for me? I'm going off to my meeting. I was like, oh, no, sir, I forgot. He goes, it's really counting on you for that, man. I walked away, and I was like, no, and dropped everything, just started typing away, printed out, got it up in like 10 minutes, and ran out the door, saw that he had already left for the meeting, and started sprinting down the street trying to catch him to give him this piece of paper, because he inspired that, because I knew he would do the same for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the practical aspect of this. If you try and be an elder for your own power, for your own greed, your congregation is going to respond in like. If you are doing it to be there for them and to take care of them and watch out for them, the congregation will respond in kind.
Yeah. And I think there's also an aspect, we talked about people who use that to lord it over somebody, and then there's people who qualify, but they're not even interested in filling that role, and so they do it begrudgingly. In contrast to somebody who's looking at that, as it says, not lording it over as allowed in your church, but proving to be examples, not in verse 2, not under compulsion, but voluntarily, like a soldier who believes in what he's doing. It's not something I have to do, it's something I get to do as a soldier.
It's citizenship. It's a citizenship. It's kind of like I seen the other day, there were people talking about American citizen, dual citizen. When you say you're a citizen, it's not stuff that you get. It's something you stand behind. You know what I mean? It's like a Roman citizen. It's not what they got. It was the concept of Rome that made them a citizen. They stood for Rome. That was, and if you're an American citizen, you stand for your country. And that's what citizenship is. It's not what your rights for voting or whatever. These are included in that, but that's not what it is. It's your loyalty. You make a pledge of allegiance to the flag from one nation. That is your citizenship. And when you become a Christian, that is your citizenship.
And if you want to be a citizen of the kingdom,
Yeah.
you have to stand for the kingdom.
And we can still render under Caesar what is
Well,
Caesar's,
yeah, you can
so
have-
we-
well, you
because
can-
we respect the God.
You still gotta
maintains
obey the laws,
Yeah.
but you can be a Christian and a citizen of the country.
Sure.
I mean, I was talking about dual citizens,
Yeah.
like can't be a Canadian and American at the same time.
Yeah.
You're loyal to one and not to the other, one way or the other. I mean, it's just, and it actually goes the same way to God's citizenship. You always got to remain loyal to God, but you can recognize the other, because you're living in the other.
Well, and in the spirit of eldership, an elder can't be divided between a congregation and himself for the very same reason, because when you flip-flop back and forth between what's good for me and what's good for everyone else, neither side is going to trust. So how can you follow somebody who is, well, whatever is best for me, this is what I'm going to do. And that's not a leader, that's not an example. So either you're for God's kingdom and the flock, or you're for yourself. But eventually that'll play out, the example will be made, and people will recognize that. So.
Well, going back to what we were saying earlier about David being the flock tender, he put himself at risk to protect when he went for that line and went to the bear, David put himself, because you got to get, I realize a sling is a very powerful thing. I've played with them, but you kind of got to get close. You kind of got to get close for it. And he put himself between him and the flock.
Yes.
And that's what Larry was saying earlier about going out and getting these people who are not, kind of fading away from the church and stuff. And you gotta get dirty sometime. That's what, leading by example means to me.
And in verse 4, it kind of ties it up nicely. And when the chief shepherd, Jesus, appears, you will receive an unfading crown of glory. So that's kind of a pointing out that no matter what we're doing, because remember he said to Peter, if you love me, those 3 times, feed my sheep, tend my flock, feed my flock. That Jesus is our chief shepherd, even if we have elders and shepherds among us. And that the reward for those things, you shouldn't expect anything here on earth. I mean, it's fine if somebody cooks something extra special for you, or a lot of times the women will put forth the hospitality. Or if you get a hug, from somebody, or an elder says, hey, I like the way you handle the situation. That's all well and good, but the real reward is coming from the chief shepherd. And that is all settled, whenever we go to meet him. So, verses 5 through 7, I'll read those if you want. You younger men likewise be subject to your elders. I know all the elders love that beginning part of the verse. And all of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, for God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in the proper time, casting your anxiety upon him, because he cares for you. These are some comforting verses, but also some, some pretty sobering verses, not to play a pun on verse 8 coming up, but younger men likewise, and I feel like every generation can say this, but it always seems like it gets worse and worse as a society degrades, and all societies do. The younger people have less and less value on older people. And it's not just because I'm getting older that I'm saying that.
And sometimes vice versa is true too. Poor Timothy, they disrespected him so much for his youth, they gave him stomach problems.
True,
So,
yeah, right.
He got ulcers. So, I don't know if that's actually the reason for it, but but the scripture says don't lose heart because they look down upon you for your youth. And we need to respect each other. We have to remember there's always something from both sides that we can learn from one another. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this verse is one of those verses that people like to cut short for their own purposes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because if you read the way my translation, it says, young men in the same way be submissive to those who are older, period. And people, instead of continuing on, will just say, oh, and that's the part we want, so we're going to take that. But then it goes on and says, all of you clothe yourselves with humility towards one another. And that second line doesn't make the distinction between elder, youth, male, female, Jew, Gentile, any of that. It says, all of you be humble towards each other. And we tend to not want to hear that second part of it if we feel we fulfill the first part of the verse. And we have to be careful of that, because that is us cherry picking the...
Well, I think it's included because in general, older men, not necessarily elder men, but older men will be in control. It just of the younger ones, because the younger ones look at these guys, well, they should be, you know, and say, okay, these guys, you know, especially back in the older days, and you know, because these guys are kind of like heroes. You know, your elders around you are kind of like here. You know, look, you know, you got the oral talking about, because they didn't have telephones and all that. The what's going on. This guy was a good guy, and even though he may not be an elder or as old as I am, he's just older than them. You know, and like a younger brother looks up to an older brother. You know, and not all the times is this good, because sometimes you have older brothers that are not good. You know, I mean, it just happens that way, and that's where the second part comes in. All of you, you know, clothe yourself in humility.
There's a good example of this. Two things in the King James. It says, "Submit to one another, everyone." But in the New American Standard, it says, "And all of you clothe yourselves with humility." In 1 Kings 21:29, there's that example. I feel like this is kind of a reference towards that. Everybody remembers the wicked King Ahab. And his wife is Jezebel. But a lot of people get caught up in that, and they forget that at the very end of that story, Elijah brings the word of the Lord against him, and Ahab hears it, and he repents. He tears it says he rends his good clothes, takes them off, clothes himself with sackcloth and ashes. So that's kind of a visual parallel here. Clothe yourselves with humility, and that pleased the Lord. He said to Elijah, "See how he humbled himself before me." So he literally, you know, he rips off his good clothes, puts ashes on himself, lays down in sackcloth, and it says he went softly. You know, as a king, you tend to go heel first and, you know, let your presence be known. But then after that, you have the gingerly going spirit, instead of just barging about like somebody with authority would. And I kind of like that visual effect from 1 Kings 21 there.
We also, I don't know, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the story of the emperor's new clothes.
Oh yeah.
So those who tend to clothe themselves with false humility, people can see through that. And that happens in a hurry.
Yeah.
And those who clothe themselves and they put on that pomp and circumstance and parade around, people laugh at them. Because they can say, "Oh, look at how humble I am." You know, it's just, you can see through that. You might as well be naked,
It's
because
hard to be
people are
humble when
laughing
you're
at
good
you.
in every
You're
way.
bringing shame upon yourself by pretending to have clothed yourself in this humility.
That's another
So-
example of, I do not think that word means what you think
Yeah.
it means.
Yeah, well, I mean, once upon a time, it was an understood thing that with age came experience and wisdom.
Yes.
And as to Tommy's comment, that ain't always necessarily so in today's day and age.
No.
Sometimes it just means someone's lived longer. They've managed to survive longer.
They got
But it
luck
doesn't
of
necessarily
the draw, yeah.
Yeah, luck
Right,
there.
but that doesn't mean they
Dumb
can't
luck.
be learned from, because,
Yeah.
you know, there are good examples and bad examples, and you can learn from both. So,
And the B part of verse 5 is basically about a third of Proverbs in a nutshell. God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And then on in verse 6, humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Man, that sounds familiar. James 4:10 says almost the exact same thing, which we just came out of. And that is said in about a dozen different ways in Proverbs too. It isn't that, I've heard it said before, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but all sin stems from pride in some way, shape, or fashion. And I've thought about that. I don't know if that's the actual truth, but gosh, it seems like it.
It seems like pride's involved some way most of the time.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of sin, if not all of it, stems from that. different or overinflation of your self-worth. You know, I will be as God, I will put my throne above, like it says in Isaiah there, the king of Tyre, which is supposedly in reference to Satan as well. I will exalt my throne above God. And even in the garden, they question, did God really say that? You know, Satan poses that little doubt. You know, he didn't mean that. We're not going to take the word of God seriously. He must have meant something else by that. And that's putting yourself, that's sinful pride, putting yourself before. And we can trust that if we keep ourselves humble and check constantly in examination, humble yourselves, and isn't it much sweeter than being one of those people who are like, oh yeah, Matt's a great guy. Just listen to him for 5 minutes, he'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
You know, rather that than go forth humbly, and then in due time, you know, you experience an experience where, you know, God will use somebody to say, hey, I like what you've been doing. Maybe they take you aside privately, saying, I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but thanks for that advice that you gave the other day. I listened to that, and that was really nice. Or thank you for something that you did the other day, you know, privately. You know, those times have always been, in my experience, very sweet. You know, and I would almost rather have those times than having or feel obligated, like, I don't think people are giving me enough praise. I need to be telling people and promote, almost like a politician. Haven't you heard about how great I am? This economy.
Here's your button.
Yeah, you know, like your taxes, because I gave you them good taxes. You know, I kid, but like, politicians seem to be very practiced at that, telling you how great they are, selling you on how great they are.
Well, that's the old idea of politicians. You got to you're selling yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and along with it, many times you're selling your soul. But you know, and that, I mean, can't say every politician, but from my observation, pretty much everybody's been tainted.
Enough to
You
be
know,
a
just
generality.
they got enough of the poison in them, you know, you know, to not really, you know, I'm vote generally for the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah.
And that's not a good way to think.
No.
You know, I'd like to have somebody like, yeah, I like that guy, I want to vote for him, not because, well, that other one, ooh, can't have that.
Yeah.
You know, I hate that type of mentality, you know.
That's been foisted on us for quite some time. But verse 7 is the comforting part. Casting all your anxiety, the King James says, casting your cares upon them because he cares for you. And the New American Translation is casting all your anxiety upon him because he cares for you. And that's always important to me, to understand that our God does have emotions. You know, he's not a gray-bearded clockmaker that has made this thing and it's wound up and he's just sitting back and watching it tick away. He's active. He's there. He hears our prayers. He listens to us. He, like it says here, he cares about us.
He realizes we have anxieties.
Yes.
He's sympathetic to that, and that's why therefore he says, put your cares upon him, you know.
And honestly, as I read this, I'm going to throw Rachel under the bus a little bit here.
Oh.
But I do think it kind of speaks to you a little bit too, because there have been times when, especially as she's going through the challenges of school, the roadblocks that come in, she's worried about how long it's taken, she's worried about all these other things. And I think that just kind of came to mind as we read this, you know, that he will lift you up in due time. You don't have to rush it, you have to trust his time. And then cast all your anxiety on him. And so that just kind of spoke to me because of that, and I know how much you've been struggling with that, so.
It's difficult to do too, because when you're used to doing things and getting things done, and we are beings that are subject to time and timelines and timing. It's hard to wait on the Lord, but the rest of the scriptures are chock full of verses that reference that. Psalms, wait on the Lord. I wait on him all day. You know, my prayers and supplications are before you. Upon you do I wait. And all those types of things. That's difficult to train yourself to do.
There's a joke, how to make God laugh, tell him your plans, you know? Because, you know, like you said, wait on the Lord. Sometimes that's what we have, you know, and anxieties. We always have anxieties about things, but waiting and being patient. I mean, Psalms tell us that a lot, you know, a lot. There's a lot of Psalms that's being, you know, waiting on the Lord, you know. He'll answer you. Sometimes he does say no, but he'll answer you, but it's in his time.
Yes. That's exactly true. Well, we covered quite a bit, I guess. 7, almost 8, we'll leave off at verse 8, right?
That's about half of it,
Yeah.
half of what got left. I hear kids.
The rest of it is kind of,
I think
some
your
of it is
kids.
the last benediction. So
No, that's not kid. That's K.
Sounds like a kid.
Here comes your brother. Oh,
We heard you out there and thought you were a kid.
I
Thought
thought
you
you
were
were
a kid.
I heard the higher pitched noise out there.
thank you. Happy Mother's Day.
You made it?
Made it.
It's something you can't buy.
Nobody
Happy
else made it.
By the way, mothers, someone brought some